kind of folks from TeamLab, Noriko Taniguchi, who's going to be in conversation with me going into some of the characteristics of the very specific approach I think that TeamLab take to immersive art. We've been working together for around 4 years on the permanent exhibition of ArtScienceMuseum, which is a partnership with TeamLab. And over that time, I've had the great privilege of speaking with many of their members about the philosophy behind the artwork, the technique that goes into the work. So it's a real pleasure to have this opportunity to share that with you today. So maybe to kick us off, Noriko, could you tell us a little bit about the origins of TeamLab? When did you start and what's the story?
TeamLab formed in 2001, aiming to eliminate the borderless and also existing discipline in this world. And the 2001 is kind of like a starting point of the digital era, and we really interested in that kind of technology because that can make our aim possible. And then also to make that happen, we want to gather many like different background people from the different specialization, and then we want to have a place to these kind of people come together. So we create the place, and we getting many different background people like as architect, CG animator, mathematician, and hardware engineers. And from the beginning, we were creating the artwork, but maybe as you can imagine, it's really hard to like get the opportunity to present the artwork at the really first stage. And then also we haven't really cannot imagine how we can maintain the team with the artwork. But we keep creating the artwork, and we really wanted to create something new, whatever genre it's going to be. Then gradually we are getting some like a passionate follower, mainly in the young people. And finally, we got a chance to show our artwork in 2011 in the Kaikai Kiki Gallery in Taipei, thanks to the artist Takashi Murakami. He's really famous Japanese artist. And after that, we are getting several opportunity to having our exhibition. So after that, in 2013, we joined the Singapore Biennale and to exhibit this artwork. We displaying there. And also in 2015, New York Pace Gallery started to promoting our artwork. So these kind of like very fortunate factors allow us to getting so many opportunity to present our artwork and then also maintaining our team members.
And let's have a look at a recent example of your work. We show one of the most recent pieces actually by TeamLab.
So after that, we are having exhibition in many countries, like as London, Paris, US, Singapore, Taipei, Thailand, and then in Spain as well. So we are now having an exhibition in Madrid. So I will show you one of the video. So this is one of the artwork we are exhibiting in Madrid, Fundación Telefónica. And if you have a chance to go there, please visit there, and then it's free entry. And as you can see, we creating like a maze-like space and exhibiting like wave images there. And it's actually continuous body of the waves. Then some of you might think this is just animation created by our own imagination, but actually this is not the case. So how we actually creating these images is basically we use a lot of computer simulation and algorithm behind that. So for example, to make this artwork, firstly we create like a 3D spaces in the like a computer, then simulate how the water particles move the space. So we are calculating movement of the 100,000 the water particles create this shape. And then as you can see, there is a line, like a blue line, and no one actually draws a line. It's actually the line we programmed, like a line is just follow the particles movement and it draws a line. So it's not just like artificial images. So we actually simulating real water flow and then giving more like a natural like feeling to our artwork.
And that topic of nature, of course, is something that TeamLab come back to again and again within your artwork. And if we can take a look at the next example here, I think this is beautifully exemplified in this piece. Flowers and people cannot be controlled, but live together. The original version of this artwork was made after you visited a very special place.
Yeah, exactly.
Within kind of Japan, the Kunisaki Peninsula. I wonder if you can share that story kind of with the visitors here.
Yeah, so you can see there is a lot of like a digital colorful flower inside of this room, and then these flowers actually interact with the people. So when people standing still at the one point, flowers gradually blooming up around the people. And if people walk around and if they touch it, flowers falling down. So it's really like people can changing the scenery and then creating the scenery together with the artwork. And as Ona mentioned, the starting point to make this artwork is when we visit the Kunisaki Peninsula in Japan. It's located west part of Japan, and the Kunisaki Peninsula was really famous in the long time ago when the boat is main transportation system in Japan. But after that, like a land vehicle take it's getting popular, and then this peninsula is kind of like a forgotten from everyone. So, but there is a really beautiful scenery and a pre-modern like feeling still remain there. And when we visited there, we found so many cherry blossom trees and very like a colorful flowers. Like there is a really beautiful flower fields. But at the same time, we astonished to see feeling the scenery, but we a bit confused about the amount of the flower because it's really a lot of flowers blooming there. So we asked the local people, how come this amount of the flower can be grown up in this area? And then actually we found that some part of the flower planted by the human a long time ago, but now these kind of the flower like from the nature and like planted by the human is like a mixed together, and there is no boundary, and actually creating a beautiful scenery with like a work of the nature and then like a work of the humans, and we feel it's really beautiful. And then how can I say, usually people think nature and the people is kind of like opposite things, but actually we can create like a great ecosystem together. So that is a starting point of us, and then we decided to like want to share this feeling with many people. So that is why we started to create this artwork.
It's so interesting because I think this work and many others embody this interest that TeamLab have in really making the point that people are part of nature.
Yeah.
We're not separate to nature, we're within nature, and therefore have responsibility, you know, kind of in that regard.
Yeah, exactly.
So with your, I guess, more recent work, there's been almost a pivot within TeamLab's practice from making artwork that is about nature somehow to making artwork in nature. And you've made a series of extraordinary installations in different parts of rural Japan in places that really embody this kind of harmonious relationship between people and the environment.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you can talk about one of those installations, A Forest Where Gods Live, which the scale of this achievement is really quite breathtaking. And maybe you can just share a little bit about this story.
Okay. So this is the one we are exhibiting artwork using actually real nature. And this is called Mifuneyama Rakuen. This is located in the Saga Prefecture. It's also west part of Japan. And there is so many beautiful trees, logs, and a lot of the history. So when people think about the history, people usually think like an old temple in Kyoto or like a Buddha statue. But in Mifuneyama Rakuen, there is a 3,000 years old trees, huge logs. We realize these kind of like a nature also formed over the enormous amount of time, and it's also a history. So when we find this like abundant sanctuary in west part of Japan, we decided to like create the artwork with the nature, and that is like a start point. We really interested in like having exhibition with the real nature.
And what's really kind of striking about this work and some of the other pieces that you've made in the natural environment is this sensitivity that you have to the environment that you're working with, and a respectfulness and a desire to have as little impact as possible on nature.
Yeah, exactly. Because digital art, basically the material is a light and the sound. So we don't really have to harm the nature and destroy the nature when we are exhibiting it. So at the beginning of this movie, you could see the beautiful scenery of the real nature. So in the daytime, you can enjoy the real nature and the park, the garden. And then in the daytime, we transformed these like 500 square meter garden into a digital art museum. So people can enjoy both real nature and the digital artwork. So usually this exhibition open from July to October. Then when we take all of the equipment and everything from the forest remains at the same like environment. So we are trying to work like with the respect of the nature.
And we've got a aerial view of the installation, haven't we? When we were kind of discussing the presentation, you were sharing that there's a very particular set of challenges that accompany, you know, large-scale work like this when you go out into the forest and have to work with whatever the forest gives you. I wonder if you can share a little bit about some of the challenges that you've had with flora and fauna.
So usually exhibition happening in the gallery or museum spaces, that is indoor. But it's really like a great to having exhibition in outside using this forest. But imagine like it's really hard to install the artwork in outside, especially in the rainy season in Japan. we have to put up the projector on the really high, and we have to protect the equipment from the animals and the insects. And yeah, so it's really hard time to install all of the artwork there. But at the same time, we really feel we cannot control the nature. We have to living together. We have to accept some rule of the nature, and then also we have to adapt to it. But at the same time, we can create very beautiful things. So yeah, we spending really hard time when we are installing, but at the same time, we having true respect for the nature as well.
And alongside this rather epic scale work in the natural environment, of course, other members of TeamLab have been very busy creating exhibitions in museums and galleries around the world. And of course, we've been lucky enough to kind of work on one of those exhibitions, Future World, where art meets science, which is the permanent exhibition of my museum, kind of ArtScienceMuseum in Singapore. And this was quite a pivotal moment for TeamLab in terms of your own practice as well. So I wonder if you could, kind of just talk us through what the significance of this show was for you.
So this exhibition is open in 2015, and before that, we had several exhibitions in several places, but almost all of them are just a temporary exhibition that lasts a few months. But exhibition in ArtScienceMuseum is permanent, so it's kind of like a really new concept for us. So then when we are talking about the plan with the owner and the member of the ArtScienceMuseum, they said they want to make TeamLab exhibition as a park. So it's really new concept for us, because people would not get bored of the park, and then the atmosphere of the park keep changing seasonally, and then also maybe in an hour. So yeah, they wanted to make this exhibition like a park. So we really have to think about kind of a new challenges for the permanent exhibition in our science museum. And then we really work very closely, step by step, having a lot of conversation, right?
Many conversations.
Yeah.
But I think what you've done as a collective since we opened Future World really marks you out as something which is quite extraordinary and unique within the ecosystem of digital cultural practice. You're an art and technology collective with over 600 members, 600 TeamLab members. Noriko is one. Also TeamLab is a business. But now, rather extraordinarily, TeamLab is a museum.
Yes.
The opening of your own museum space in Tokyo last year really represented something of a step change, I think, for TeamLab.
Yep.
So tell us about TeamLab Borderless. What would visitors find there?
So we opened a TeamLab only museum in Tokyo last year, 2018 in July. So we just had the 1 year anniversary. And yeah, in Tokyo, we dominated 10,000 square meter space. It's quite a huge. And now around 2.3 million people from over 160 countries come to visit our museum. We never ever imagined that kind of things when we are planning it. So as the museum name implies, the main theme of this museum is borderless. So you would find some a borderless world inside. And then, as I said, it's kind of a huge spaces, but there is no map and there is no fixed route. So people usually, when they get inside, they lost the way. They don't know where to go. But this is kind of like our intention to give them a little bit like a confusion. But after that, people gradually get to know they have to proactively find something by themselves. And it's kind of like a new kind of experience, we think. And then it's also really important for like people as well. So people started to find them, like find a way by themselves and see, like try to find a new exhibition in some places inside of the museum. So that is like a main experience, but I think it's really hard to explain only with the word. So yeah.
But partly I think one of the reasons why people will get lost in Borderless is because the artworks themselves move from gallery to gallery.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so,
I think you've got a really nice illustration of this.
So I will show you one example. There is so many artworks inside, but I will pick up one artwork and then show you how they move through the different rooms. So you can see there is a bird flying this like a waterfall room right now. They actually close. So they now flying in this room and then going to another room. Then when they get inside of the different spaces, it's same artwork, but the forming are quite different, like scenery, and then it's also same artwork using a different material, but like showing a different art, like atmosphere. So in the TeamLab Borderless, I think there is a two way to enjoy it. One is you can just follow the artworks and they see what's happening on in the different spaces, and then the other one more way is maybe you can like stay one places and then many artworks coming in and getting out, and like you can see the different artworks in the same place as well. So in the ordinary exhibition, like one space or usually have only one artwork, but in the Borderless, scenery is keep changing. It's quite complex experience, yeah.
And I'm sure, you know, like any artist, it's very difficult to isolate one particular highlight within such a huge exhibition. But I'm going to ask you anyway, what would be your personal highlight in Borderless?
Yeah, it's actually really hard to pick one because, as I said, all the artworks is keep moving, so it's difficult to puts the clear line between the artworks. But if I have to pick one of my favorite artworks, it would be Memory of Topography. This one. So you can see the date, like in the bottom of this movie. So the scenery of the artwork is actually connected to real time. So in June, you can see this scenery, but in in other months, a scenery is completely changed. So this landscape basically designed the images from Japanese mountain with the rice field. And yeah, one of the reasons I really like this artwork is because it was exhibited in Milan Expo before back in 2015, and then it was my first exhibition. I was in charge of it since I joined TeamLab. So it's really my memorial artworks.
And for me, I was so excited when you told me that this piece was coming into Borderless, because ever since we started working together, I've been talking about that artwork from Milan Expo, which at the time was called Harmony. And we've been trying to convince you to bring this artwork to Singapore for the longest time. But this new development of the piece, I think really illustrates TeamLab's approach to immersion, and that the artwork really happens around the visitor. The visitor really has to move into the landscape and becomes part of the landscape somehow.
Exactly. So we are always thinking about how we can integrate people into the artwork. As you can see, there is so many like a round shape screen elevated from the floor. The people actually can be inside of the G screen. So in that way, we are trying to get people physically inside of the artwork. And then also, like this one designed like a natural, like a mountain, a hill. So the floor is not flat. The floor actually have a hill. Then before the hill, there is a tree-like screen. So people started to walk like under the tree. Then going up this is a tree screen, and then going up the hill, and then like continuous images of the scenery is waiting there at the top of the hill. So it's really like we exhibited in Milan Expo before, but it's kind of a lot of like improvement. We pushed the idea furthermore, so it's now quite different atmosphere.
So speaking of immersion and the body being completely part of the work, I want to wind up my questions for you by asking a question about immersion, which is, very much one of the themes of Sónar this year, and is a very hot topic, I think it's fair to say, in art and theatre, also in, kind of marketing kind of space. You've got a second large-scale, almost sort of semi-permanent exhibition in Tokyo called Planets. And this really is dedicated to this principle of immersion, where the visitors' bodies become completely immersed in the art, and the boundaries between the body and the artwork dissolve. Given that this is almost the sort of high point of your immersive work, tell us a bit about Planets and how it maybe differs from some of your other works.
So TeamLab Planets also opened in Tokyo last summer, and it's about 5,000 square meters. It sounds relatively smaller comparing with the Borderless, but there is only the Borderless is huge, but there is only 7 artworks, so each of the room is bigger than the Borderless, and then also we use a lot of mirror to make giving a sort of an infinity feeling there. So people actually immersed with the images, and then also before entering the TeamLab Planets, there is kind of like a special experiment. You need to take out your shoes, socks. Everyone have to be barefoot. So it's kind of like a starting point of the journey of the TeamLab Planets. And in there, we created some exhibition that makes people get inside of the artwork, giving more like an immersive feeling inside. So this artwork, you are going inside of the water, real water. So the water is about 30 centimeters high, and you walk around the water, and then you can interact with the images as well.
And is it true? I seem to remember one of your members telling me that the temperature of the water can be controlled also. So if it's very cold winter's day outside, then the water will be quite warm. And if it's very sunny, then the water will be quite cool. Is this true?
Exactly. So it's actually really difficult to maintain this kind of artwork. So we actually circulating the water and then keep it clean all the time, and then we control the temperature. So as Ona said, in the winter it's like warm, but in the summer it's cold.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And this piece has become, in many ways, a kind of signature artwork for TeamLab. This is a kind of a version of your Crystal Universe artwork that we also have in Future World, and represents, I guess, a moment where you're moving away from projection into kind of physical light installation. So tell us a bit about this.
So we are using a lot of projector to having making the artwork, but we also making the artwork with that LED light. So that's in that images you saw like a lot of lights inside, but we basically think that is a kind of like dots of the monitor.
Yes.
So for example, there is a television, and if you really get closer to the screen, you could see all the images divided in the like small dots. So each one of the G's LED light is meant to be a G's dot. So in this artwork, we are trying to get people inside of the images. And then it's actually the 3D spaces. So images are also like a 3D, so people can be like immersed with the light, and then immersed with the images as well. And then also people can control the images as well. So maybe it's a bit hard to see the people inside. They have a smartphone actually. Then using the app, they can create the like a light sculpture inside by themselves. So they select the effect with the smartphone. Then when they swipe it, G's effect created inside of this crystal universe, and then each of the like effect affecting each other as well, and then people also interact with it. So yeah, actually this one is also the scenery is never the same. It's always keeps changing.
A sort of ecosystem of interactions. So we've got time, I think, for maybe one or two questions. Have we got questions for Noriko, comments, kind of feedback, looking out for hands? So if there's no questions from the floor, maybe just, we've got one over there. I can sort of see a silhouette. Have we got a mic for the questions? Yeah, here we go.
Hello.
Hello.
That was really quite something, actually. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you.
That was, I feel thoroughly moved. Where do you, clearly your inspiration is based from a lot from around nature, from around you. What's the evolution of that? Where do we go next?
Evolution. So yeah, I think we still lot of things we doesn't really understand for the nature. So there is a lot of things we want to discover. So I'm not sure the evolution in a way, like talking about the nature, but I think like talking about more about the art, I think like before people usually like have the art, like art usually have like a substance, painting on the canvas or the sculpture, but I think like it's gradually changing, or it's gradually creating a new kind of the artwork that is people want to like not have like just be an artwork or to be a part of the artwork and then sharing it. I think this kind of like a new concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to speak to your point around evolution, one of the new areas of work that you see TeamLab exploring within Borderless and also within Future World is the use of the body and the way that the body, kind of experiences nature.
Yes.
So in a lot of TeamLab's recent works, you're playing with the topography of the space and creating, an environment where you have to climb or crawl or wade through.
Yeah.
So you're almost really, kind of starting to explore how people be in nature rather than just what nature is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are just not showing the nature, but we encourage the people use your body to experience it, and then also use your a sense, not only the eyesight. So so especially in the TeamLab planets, as you can see, you have to use the body to walk in the really uneven floor, and then you would gradually think you are kind of it's really hard to explain in the word, but when you come to actually experience the exhibition, I think you would probably feel you are melting inside of the artwork and being part of the artwork really, and then you kind of having a connection with artwork and then also other audiences. But I think this kind of things rarely happening in the ordinary exhibition, with a painting or the sculpture. Yeah,
absolutely. So we've got time for one last question, I think. I think we've got one over here, and then we can quietly wrap up. Thanks, Alex.
Congratulations for your work.
Thank you very much.
I would like to know, how do you do the projects? I mean, there is a lot of people in the projects. There is a leader of the projects. There is a kind of ideology that all the people have to search for it. How do you work?
Yeah, so as Ona said, we now have 600 people in Tokyo. So usually people very surprised about the number. But as we are creating the digital art, it's quite different process to making a painting or sculpture, I think. So when it comes to creating the digital artwork, we need a lot of specialists. For example, CG animators, mathematicians, and then also network engineers. And then, for example, this artwork, this artwork connected with the application on the smartphone. Then we need a smartphone application engineer, and then also network engineer think about how we could connect these up and then the artwork. And then also, how can I say, we usually, so for example, with the small amount of people making a digital art, it's kind of very difficult to create a very complex one, because there is tons of things to do to creating that kind of the artwork. So people usually think 600 people is too much, but actually everyone is every day really working
very hard.
Very hard. So it's actually really collaborative work inside of the TeamLab. So we have 600 people, but they are all have a specialization in a different background. So, yeah.
What I find really interesting, and this is maybe a note to kind of wrap up on, is that when we speak about art and technology and the space of digital culture, particularly for people outside the field, we assume that a lot of the creative process is, done by machines. And particularly now in the age of machine learning and kind of artificial intelligence, is a fair assumption that a lot of this production must kind of happen inside machines. And what's very striking about TeamLab's work is that it's incredibly handmade, actually. Every code is written by somebody, kind of all of the modeling is done by somebody. It's a very, very human endeavor.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a nice point, I guess, to remind ourselves on that, even though we're here in a conference which is looking at those connections between art and technology, at the end of the day, kind of all of this work is made by people.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming and listening to us speak about the extraordinary immersive art of TeamLab. And please help me thank Noriko for coming and sharing today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.